to have been a financial venture, but it turned out to be just a service for the people. Okay. Now, what I'd like to say here is that the two architects of HB 2281, Tom Horn and John Hoppenthal, have been defeated, have been placed aside. So that opens up a new phase in the struggle for keeping Mexican American studies. Now there's the people running for the superintendent of Arizona schools there's one guy named David Garcia, and there's a woman, I can't remember her right name, but she's a Tea Party member. Okay? And in fact, the way the struggle, the repression of Mexican American studies in Tucson started, it was Tea Party people coming forward and saying that we have this program. And they're not saluting the flag, and they're talking about the conquest and blah, blah, and all this stuff. And that's how it got started. And then two opportunistic politicians came in and took the flag and eventually wrote the bill. And they got support from Steve Montenegro, who's a Salvadoran immigrant who's a mentee of Russell Pierce. And he's still around, just to understand it. Now, and understanding what happened in Arizona, it's very important to go to the article by Rudy Acuña on the 1970s, 1980s, the deconstruction of the 1960s, because that's basically what happened in Arizona. But it happened from 1992 to 2010, and it happened from 2000 to 2010. But because Arizona is a very conservative state, it was funded to have people who favor slavery, and that's why they split from New Mexico, because it used to be part of New Mexico all the way to Yuma. And so, and during the Civil War, they fought on the side of the Confederates. So it's basically to understand the nature of what we're facing in Arizona. Okay. Now, in the video, Taking Back the Schools from 1977 talks about the struggle here in Los Angeles, and Garfield High School, and Lincoln High School, and Roosevelt High School. But that type of struggle was occurring also in Texas. It was occurring in Arizona. It was occurring in New Mexico. And there's a movie that talks about the struggle in the defense of Mexican studies in Tucson. And at the very beginning of the movie, you talk about what they did in the 1960s and 1970s. While here in Los Angeles, we were having the walkouts. So what happened? The program in Mexican American studies over there is a continuation of that, and it's still there, and it still will continue. Just like what is different in the Arizona model is that they were able to establish ethnic studies, Mexican studies, and also Afro-American studies, Native American studies, Asian American studies from K to 12. That is the difference. I've seen the units for the Mexican American studies program. It's about 3,000 pages. All those units, I highly recommend them for you, because they're for high school students, and they're a good point to study them and see how they're done, and then move forward, because those can be done. That's what is needed and from K to 12. Okay. Now, what happened is that when I moved to Arizona, Arizona was still talking about not doing away with the Martin Luther King holiday. That was it. And the Afro-American studies, Afro-American movement fought against that. Okay? At that time also, and they got it reinstated because the football players boycotted it. Okay. But at that time, what we had, as far as Chicanos, we had affirmative action, we had voting rights, we had bilingual education, we could use the Spanish language, and we had Chicano studies. All of those, we had them. Okay? But what happens is when Operation Gatekeeper came in by Clinton and sealed the border in Tijuana, San Diego, and Juárez, Ciudad Juárez, and El Paso, all the massive migration came in through Arizona, okay? Which is okay, because it's been done by thousands of years, if that's what we found out along the way. So nothing can stop migrations. I mean, that's the way life is. And what happened at that time is that all of a sudden, there were no Mexican Americans, there were no Chicanos, which means they were not citizens, like in the Tratado de Guadalupe Hidalgo, in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, or of the several generations of migrants who come here, earn citizenship and participate in World War I and World War II. Okay, all of a sudden they were just Mexicans, illegals. Everybody. Okay? And Russell Pierce was leading that movement, along with supported by other the Tea Party and other people. Russell Pierce was an Arizona Ranger. Remember the Texas Rangers? Okay. Well, his uncle was an Arizona Ranger. Just to keep it in mind, the type of person that was leading the movement. He just didn't like Mexicans. Okay. So, he had experience of that because there were too many. Okay. As far as Latinos in Arizona, we're about one third. Out of 6 million, we're close to 2 million people, so we're very represented. Okay. Keep in mind also that Arizona, that's where the Southwest National Council of the Raza came out, which it was known as the Southwest Council of Raza, and eventually ascended to the National Council of Raza. So, and there's a lot of national leadership that's come out of there from the mining struggles. So that's very, very important. Okay, and because that points also to the struggle that were involved as far as Mexican American studies from K to 12. Okay, and so once Russell Pierce got their support from the Tea Parties and other people, we lost affirmative action. We lost voting rights. We lost bilingual education. The loss of the use of public use of Spanish. And also, voter IDs came out. And that's being used across the country right now. It is to reduce the votings from the students, from minorities, and for women. So that, because demographics changes are occurring, and the Republican Party wants to make sure that there's no more gains, because they're afraid that 1/3 of America is people of color. And if you throw in women into the mix, hey, maybe those who want to rule are only about 10% or 25%, just to keep it in mind. So, we lost that. But there's been just recent developments now, okay? Because of the boycott that we carried out, and many people supported us, we made the business people in Arizona tremble in their feet. About 60 of them, top businessmen, signed a letter to the legislature and say, no more anti-immigrant laws, which also meant no more anti-Mexican American laws. Is that clear? Because the attack was not just against immigrants, okay? It was also against Mexican Americans. And let me tell you here, out of the people who migrated, I would say from the migration during, from 1994, let's say to 2006, I would say about 4 or 5 million people crossed Arizona. Is that clear? 4 or 5 people crossed. Okay? At the maximum, only 400,000 stayed. And then when the Proposition 2010 came in, 200,000 left. So there are only about 200,000 undocumented workers were there. Very little. The great majority of the people in Arizona is Chicanos. Is that clear? Latinos. That is a fact. But for them, we were just all illegals, for Russell Pierce, and for Andrew Thomas, and for, let's see, Tom Horn, and for also John Hoopadow. Tom Horn was educated, he was born in Canada, but he was educated at Harvard. So he believes also in traditional Western education. Okay, so does Andrew Thomas, who led the movement against immigrants in Maricopa. That's what they believe in. So for them, ethnic studies, Mexican American studies, is a threat. Now, the greatest irony is that when it comes to ethnic studies, because I visited, Sean invited me to go to the center, he used to head it. I went into those offices in the Tucson Union High School District, and I saw their offices for Afro American Studies, Asian American Studies, Native American Studies. They didn't touch those. It was just against Mexicans. Only Mexican American Studies they repressed. Okay? Now, it was going back to the boycott, and it has helped us defeat Russell Pierce, Andrew Thomas, and we're putting the brakes on Arpaio as much as possible. And we have undone, through the work with Somos America, through the work of ACLU, through the work of many other organizations up and down the state, and Tucson over here, basically, the only thing that's left of 1070 is the one where the police can ask for your papers if they arrest you. But even then, it's a matter of enforcement. Okay, so that's about what exists. A while back, just about 2-3 days ago, the Proposition 100, which did away that denied bail to any undocumented worker. They had to stay in jail until they signed our self-deportation piece. And it was also a way of criminalizing them so they would never qualify for any type of amnesty. Okay? So, because of the great, tremendous pressure on the part of Chicanos, Chicanas, Afro-Americans, Asian Americans, Native Americans, and Anglo-American people who have always supported ethnic studies. You go back to the 1960s, they're always there. You go back to, you look at the Tucson Unified School District, and you look at some of the people who have been working, organizing the units and so on, and working with the people in the communities, the teachers, you will find Anglo-Americans. So a part of the strategy is you must work with them, which isn't hard. I'm a Spanish professor. The majority of my students are Anglo. I teach them. And Spanish. I teach them Chicano worldview. And they like it. Because they're going to be working in the community. That's what ethnic studies will eventually do for American education. We just have to undo the hegemonic European vision. The one that I got. The one that most Chicano intellectuals were in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, that's what they got. And that's why they produce now hundreds of essays, thousands of essays, hundreds of books, and all those books and essays were coded inside the units of the Mexican American Studies program. They're there, a collection of books. Okay, so when I see the young people here in the Boys Club and says, this is what we want, hey, it reminds me when I was 18 or 19 and I went to the Denver Youth Conference, and that's what we all said, that's what we want. And I can tell you personally that if it wasn't for Chicano Studies and the Spanish version, I would have not survived the doctorate. 9 Chicano graduate students fell before me. And I say, you're not going to do that to me. I organized them. The ones that were there before, now they're novelists, they're poets, they're teachers. And we led a movement, and what did we do at the end? We established a Chicano-Latino doctoral track in Spanish. So, and I produced 10 PhDs and about 22 MAs, and I have helped Latin American PhDs and Peninsula PhDs finish the degree by reading their text and helping them, because we also need to maintain those cultures, but within a worldview, Hispanic worldview, that includes Chicanos, Latinos from the U.S. Okay, so I'm just saying now that, and closing by saying that we have defeated Tom Horn, who was corrupt, is corrupt, and even the Republicans found out he was corrupt. We defeated John Huppenthal, who also was a racist. He emailed, he changed his name, and he came out with all his positions. Okay? Tea Party positions. He's out. And the struggle continues. Yes, the program was, to an extent, attacked, frozen, but it's not going to stop. It's going to continue. And the new superintendent may give, he says, if he's elected, David Garcia, with the support, and we now have about 90,000 new registered Chicano Latinos in Arizona, if he gets in, he will support the reinstatement of Mexican American Studies in some form. Okay? Whereas the other, I heard on the radio, says, we don't want that because they're talking about the conquest. They're talking about Spanish and so. And she comes in, hey, we're going to have to fight her again. So that's what I'm trying to do. If you want Mexican American Studies from K to 12, it's been around the struggle since the 1960s. We have had many battles. We got it at the university. People are happy. They're being going out in different fields. But now we once again hear the cry of the youth. They say, you got it. We want it because we see that you have succeeded. And now it's not just 4.5 million people of Mexican descent. It's 29 million and growing. It's not just 5 to 6 million Latinos. It's 50 from the 2010 census, and now it's 54 million, and it's growing. So that hegemonic European curriculum is no longer viable for America. America has changed. Y adelante con la lucha a favor de los estudios mexicoamericanos.
Gracias, Profe Hernandez. It's great to be here. Very exciting that we have possibilities, very strong possibilities to spread a effective education for our traditionally marginalized youth, particularly Black and brown youth here in LA. And I'm coming just to share a little bit of perspective and offer some support for the folks in Southern Califas, in LAUSD, because I was part of that program. I was one of the creators of the Mexican-American Studies, Mexican-American Raza Studies program in Tucson, and I had the opportunity to work for close to 20 years as a classroom teacher, as the administrator of the program when we were under attack. So I have that perspective. I think something that it's a no-brainer. Folks, it's really a no-brainer when we look at the demographics of the state of California. And I broke them down, and all we have to do is look at disparities. For the Black community, representing 6.6% of the entire state population of California, yet they are 3 times, almost 4 times overrepresented in the prison systems, okay? For Raza, the same thing, 38.2%, and this is documented Raza, yet we are overrepresented in the prison system, and we are underrepresented in higher education. So there's no reason why we should not have an ethnic studies, because this is really, I heard one of the brothers the other day that was at the ethnic studies rally. I got word of some of the talk over there, and he stated that this is a matter of life and death. And it really is a matter of life and death. These programs are transformative, and the schools are killing the spirits, killing the opportunities of our youth. And this is evidence, folks. This right here is really evidence. So there's a demographic, not only a demographic shift taking place, or that has taken place, but this is a demographic imperative. This is really a demographic imperative. I usually start off with explaining our pedagogy, our framework of what we did in our particular ethnic studies program. But this is an empirical-based methodology, and we have, we always talk about the achievement gap, this pervasive, persistent achievement gap with Chicana Latino youth. And for very low and for low-income youth, and we're talking N sizes of thousands of youth for over a 4-year period, in this program, our teachers, our familias, our parents were able to close the achievement gap. And this is with working class, poor Raza families. And so we have the evidence. And these studies were commissioned by the state of Arizona. They were commissioned by the federal court because our district is under a federal desegregation order. And yet they still eliminated us. When we have poor working class Raza youth that are achieving academically, that are going on, matriculating to colleges and universities, and yet the state of Arizona and our own school district cowered to this racist law and eliminated us. Okay, they're not eliminating. They're not making a big deal about our youth going to prison. They're not making a big deal of the fact that over 52% of our youth in Arizona public schools are being pushed out year after year. Yet we have achievement. We have academic achievement. And they still eliminated the department and eliminated the course of study. So that is really unprecedented with and for Chicano youth. The fact that the academic achievement gap was not only closed, but actually students in our classes, low and very low income Raza youth, were able to outperform their peers, and that includes white peers. And as you see in writing, I'm not going to bore you with all these things, but writing, reading, anywhere from 162%, 162% more likely to pass in 1 year, 2008, 101% more likely, 168% more likely in reading over that 4-year period. In mathematics, we did not teach mathematics. Our classes were literature-based, English, Chicano Latino literature, Chicano history, a social justice education project that was based on, that was a senior level class, but we did not teach mathematics. And that really speaks to when we develop with and for our youth, when we develop an identity, a strong cultural identity, when we honor their lived experiences, when we have teachers that come from those same communities, from those same barrios, from those same neighborhoods as our youth, that is when we together in collaboration with our students develop these strong identities. And these are the type of results that we get. You see the graduation rate, 46 and 150% more likely over those 4-year periods. And the thing about it is these are all, for all you number heads, for all you quantitative scholars out there, these are all statistically significant. Statistical significance, you know. And that in itself is very significant. I'm not going to go into the exact into great detail because I know Roberto, our collaboration, Profe Rodriguez here, is going to speak to this. But this was our framework, and I'm going to explain it as in the most succinct way as I can. But it's about these 4 quadrants, these 4 energías, these 4 principles of self-reflection, which is Tezcatlipoca. Quetzalcoatl is that precious and beautiful knowledge. Huitzilopochtli is that will, that colibri, that hummingbird, the will to act, to go out and do positive, progressive things for our community. And Xipe Totec, which is transformation. And this Tezcatlipoca, speaking to a Chicano elder in Phoenix, Tupac Acosta, he talks about Tezcatlipoca as reflection, critical self-reflection, because our schools do not provide those opportunities for our youth to critically self-reflect. In fact, they discourage it. In fact, they frown upon it. In fact, they strip the culture, the history, the identity of our youth. So in this sense, this pedagogical frame, this pedagogical principle is where we're able to self-reflect on our personal histories, our lived histories, the histories of our familias, the histories of our communities. And in that sense, staying consistent with the original tenets of ethnic studies, it's a call for liberation. This is an educational, decolonizing project that calls for liberation. Here's some parent testimonials. I think those are very important. Quetzalcoatl is that precious and beautiful knowledge, and we understand that our students are not only bearers of knowledge, but they are also creators of knowledge. They come into our classrooms with the wealth of knowledge, barrio knowledge, familial knowledge, neighborhood knowledge, okay? But equally and sometimes more important that they are creators of knowledge. I know Profe Rodriguez speaks to that at length in his work. This is real important to add some of this this perspective on Huitzilopochtli, la voluntad, because we could self-reflect. We know we have knowledge within our community, but again, staying consistent with the original objectives of ethnic studies, Chicano studies. It's about action. It's about this critical praxis that we must engage in. But we have some of these testimonials from our students here, a young Chicana who was always being told she's not intelligent, she's not beautiful, she's going to get pregnant. Consistent throughout her high school experiences. So in these interviews, these themes emerge of speaking up and speaking out against authority, speaking out against these injustices. And that's critically important, not to give our students voice, but to provide the context, provide the classroom conditions to empower our youth so that they do practice that voice, because all of our students have voice. We just need to unpack that and really nurture that sense of that will to act and do positive, progressive, and creative things for our youth. And I'm going to wrap it up. This type of pedagogy, this type of curriculum, this critical analysis, we have to do many critical analyses, demographic analyses within our communities, the ethnic studies programs that we implement, that we will be implementing in LAUSD. I know the folks in LAUSD are gonna make this happen, but it really needs to be reflective of the communities that we're serving. The specific conditions of certain neighborhoods, of certain schools, it needs to be responsive, it needs to be sustainable for these communities. But we have here in Tucson, we have a model that has worked. A rigorous model that is about the development of a positive, strong, healthy identities. We have a decolonizing, a liberatory education for Chicano and Raza youth, but these type of templates, these type of pedagogical frameworks are applicable to our brother and sister communities, the African American community, the Asian community. Okay, and then the last implication is we all look forward to building and sharing with you all. So with that, I would like to introduce someone dear to us in Tucson, Professor Roberto Rodriguez.
This is good. Yeah, that one.
Notice how these guys are for me slow, huh?
Newa no toca Senteotlacatzin, Tlazocamatlihuelmiac, for inviting me to speak here. And yeah, I'm from East LA, via Santa Monica. No. No, I am from East LA, but I have lived in Santa Monica. I say that because we do Raza studies now, from over there, and then now ethnic studies now. I want to start by with a story. I'm actually a storyteller nowadays, and so it has to do with Sean. A couple of them. When we were in these intense battles, we actually had trials, as to which books were going to be banned, which artwork was illegal, et cetera, et cetera. So, living in Tucson, went into Phoenix, and as I literally walk in the doors, Sean's testifying, and it says, and the judge says, do you know who Roberto Rodriguez is? And he says, yes. He goes, you ever heard, do you know the book, The X and La Raza? And he says, yes. And he says, well, he has a passage here about the Plymouth Rockers. Anyway, I won't continue with the story because it's longer. The second story, the point being is we're actually, this is what, 2012? Trials about what is valid. You know what else they pointed to, remember, I think it's Yolanda, who's the alien pilgrim? They brought that up at the trial. That was illegal, bizarre. But the other story about Sean, it's coincidental. Maybe I would have only told one story, but you have to know that in Tucson, our community is awesome. And it's literally, and Sean will tell you, it's our youngsters. I got arrested with little kids, middle school and high school students, defending their program. In one of our, we took over the state building. Anyway, in one of our big actions in 2009, the youngsters were very frustrated, because they had been told that, it wouldn't be a good idea if they protested. and the youngsters said like, well, we have to do something. They decided to do a run from Tucson to Phoenix. And we did that run. About 500 of us gathered in the morning, and then in the end, about 50 went the whole route. 115 degrees in July. I've been an athlete my entire life, but I hate running. I've always hated running. But we did it, and to make a long story short, I wanted to quit halfway, but I remember being in the van and looking at Sean and Augie, the big guys, huh? And they were like, huffing and puffing. And I was like, I guess I can't quit. So we made it. And the day, and a lot of us from here, actually anybody in the movement, we're usually protesting, right? Well, when we got to the state capitol, we weren't protesting anymore. We were told, you've won. We're dropping that bill. That was 2009. It was we didn't know what to do, So we celebrated. And I think maybe I know that one of the concepts that I speak about is creation resistance. Because we are a resistance community. And in my opinion, it's like we have become a creation resistance community. Because protesting, it's like, well, we know what we don't want, but what do we want? And I think that's what this program represents. I think a lot of what we do, a lot of what you do, what all of us do, we have to become part of that creation culture. But it can't be one or the other. It has to be both. Because they're not going away. Manuel forgot to mention, we also gave the boot to Jan Brewer. She's also out. I had some water. Yeah. Okay, so the part of the creation I want to show you is this right here. No, back. I'm not even going to go through it because, believe me, this takes 2 hours, but I'll get to this in one quick second. There's something else that we need to know, and that's that, everybody's heard about, right? The attacks on Raza studies, et cetera, and then this is going on for 4 or 5 years, and then when it became super big nationally, it was because of the books, banned books. And my opinion is that wasn't the big story. It was a big story, but it wasn't the biggest story. I have 5 of my books that were banned, and 2 of them, and again, Sean will tell you, 2 of them were a year before, and that was the Ex en la Raza and Codex Tamuanchan on Becoming Human. And they're still locked up in warehouses, but we're going to get them out. Yeah, I have about 7 points, and I'm probably going to miss them all. But let's see. I think what I was saying is that the most important part is not that they banned a program or even books, but they attempted to ban a worldview, a cosmovision. Western civilization versus Raza studies. What is Raza studies? It's an indigenous worldview. That's what they objected to. One of our colleagues was presenting the Aztec calendar, and the principal walked in and made her take it down. In other words, and I have to tell you this, some of us are part of this, not by choice, but the documentary, Latino Americans, the National Hispanic Forest Service, it's a big, huge, they honor monuments, and then the National Latino Museum. All of them begin with 3 ships. 3 ships arrive on the shore, and here we are. And, that's why our youngsters ran. That's why they got arrested. They know better, Our culture goes back thousands and thousands of years and has nothing to do with race or race mixture. All of us have a little bit of something, a little bit of mixture. But our root is here. It's indigenous, And that's why, again, nobody told our students to get arrested, to do all the things that they've done, And I think that, it's critical because, again, if we simply think in terms of programs, that's not what it is. It literally is, they object to who we are. I always say it was an attack on the body, the mind, and the spirit. The body was SB 1070. 2281 was our spirit, And that no matter how much they try, we will always win. Regardless of what they do to programs, we are gonna win, and we will win. There's no doubt about that, at least in my mind. Let me see. Yes. What's important as I was talking about ourselves as educators, creating, I mean, that's our number one job, to create and keep creating. Because what I believe in my involvement with Raza Studies at TUSD is coming to an understanding that was radically different than what we were taught as high school students, as college students. When I first took Chicano Studies, I was taught that we were created as a result of a war, 1848. And then that was pushed back by scholars and said, no, actually, we were created in 1519, the first mestizo. You know, I did 2 decades of research, and I never heard that. You know, my work is on elder epistemology. That's simply like knowledge from my own parents, knowledge from my grandparents, knowledge from elders. And nobody ever talked about a war or an invasion. It was our maíz. Maíz is who we are. Maíz is 7,000 years old. It was scientifically created, and it spread throughout the continent. That's who we are, you know. And our kids understand that. That's a radical concept in Chicano Studies, believe it or not, because it's still 1848 and 1519. But I teach my kids, and to them, that they don't see that as radical, and it isn't. It's logical. I tell them, you know, we are what we eat. What do we eat? You know, corn, beans, squash, and chile. That's a diet. That diet is over 7,000 years old, and you cannot die from that. That is, it sustains people, you know, and it's been doing it for thousands and thousands of years. So what I wanted to do real quick now is go back to the first one. Believe me, I wish I could do this because it takes 2-3 hours at least. When I'm in a rush, it's 2 hours. So I'm just going to show you them as opposed to go through them. You know, part of what Raza Studies at TUSD was teaching was the first 2 concepts, Inlakesh and Pancheve. Now, through my own work, you know, I teach 7 concepts, which include the 2, but there's 7. And I'll be very brief about that. Okay, all of that has to do with being and becoming human. And I know some of you probably know this, right? This is another tiny little story. You know, I'm from here. I literally was chased out of here, you know. I won 2 trials that lasted 7.5 years against the police, right? So I decided to move to somewhere a little safer, like Arizona. A little calmer. Anyway, so for me, the topic of being and becoming human comes from that, you know, of having been arrested 60 times, you know, having to fear for my life, on and on and on, you know. So to me, that's what it was about. But, you know, and I think most of you know, this is not unique. That's what we were talking about. Sean was just talking about. Our prisons are full. Black and brown bodies, same story. The only difference is that at least I get a mic, you know. Most of our youngsters don't get mics, you know. So that means that's what we're talking about. Our communities are about defining what it means to be human. And so the beauty of all this is all of this comes from our own community. You know, they try to shove down Greco-Roman studies, Western civilization down our throats, and we have that already. So we counter with, and it's not even a counter. This is what we have. We have maíz-based knowledge that goes back 7,000 years. In Lakesh and Pancheve, I don't know if everybody knows that. In Lakesh is, tú eres mi otro yo. You are my other me. It's a concept found throughout the world. You know, I think, what is it? All the religions have it. They call it the golden rule. You know, yeah, love thy neighbor, do unto others as you do. You know, every religion, all philosophies have that. Pancheve, I think, is the more radical one in the sense that it's not only about to seek the root of the truth, but it's to act upon it. And that means to seek social justice. And I think that's why they really didn't like our own little 12-year-old. Here's another story. We had all these little kids came to our university because they had been suspended. And this little kid, like 12 years old, he's like, well, you know, that wasn't my first walkout. Yeah, that was Wakefield Middle School. Yeah. In other words, veteranos at 12 years old, Tucson. Anyway, so that's Pancheve, to seek the root of the truth. Unapgu is literally simply creation. You know, all societies, all cultures have an explanation. Supreme being, creator, you know, you name it, the great mystery. You know, we just have different languages, right? But Europeans thought like, oh, well, we're all demonic, you know? We don't pray to God, you know? But that's basic. It's the explanation of creation. Men, of course, it's not English. It's Yucatec Maya. And that's simply, and then I think that's who we are. It's creer, crear y hacer. You know, it's the idea of like if you believe you're losing, you lose. You know, if you believe you're gonna win, you win. You know, it's creating that psyche within ourselves. You know, and so again, creer, crear y hacer, to imagine. You know, to create and to follow through. That is, don't leave it at the level of dream. You follow through, and I think that's what we've done. All of us really. Gochi, and then, you know, I'm not a Yucatec Maya expert or expert on anything, but maybe writing. But Gochi is who we are. Education with a responsibility. Et beats. That's the law of cause and effect. All cultures have it. All societies, you know. On the streets, it's what comes around goes around. You know, all societies have that. The last one is Yache Balche, and that's an ecological balance. And these ideas are thousands of years old. And it's signified by the idea that muerto el último árbol, muerto el último ser humano. The death of the last tree signifies the death of the last human being. It's, again, an ecological concept. A lot of this comes from a scholar by the name of Domingo Martinez Paredes. That's where Luis Valdez took a lot of his ideas. He has about 9 books. They were all banned, you know. However, they're in libraries, so you can get them. I think it's almost time, right? Yeah? Okay, so let me conclude. I'm just very proud that after a good 20 years of research, my book, and I think you don't even need to look inside the book. The cover by itself is an amoshli. It's a codex. And the title is Our Sacred Maiz is Our Mother. And so to me, I look at it simply as like, again, when they give us the Greek and the Roman stuff, that's nice. We already know it, you know? This is who we are. It's 9 indigenous elders and scholars. You know, I write the main part of it, but there's 9 stories in between, from the Quechua, the Cachiquel, all the way to the Choctaw. You know, it's awesome. I mean, I think it's, you know, it's awesome. Yeah, because I forgot to tell you. I mean, I received death threats for doing this. I also got, there was a campaign to fire me and all this other stuff. But in the end, you know, I'm doing okay. I'm up for tenure now. And I think this is, just the last second is I wanted to actually present this to Jose. Jose, if you can come up. Yeah, because this is about ethnic studies now.
All right.
We can conclude with what is supposedly illegal in Arizona.